Hi everyone and welcome back to the series of Python Unleashed. My name is Ajay and today's topic is we are going to take few examples regarding classes and objects. Since we have learned some basics of classes and objects, so we will take few examples like here is the question in front of you, and that is like we need to define a class with the following specifications, and these are the members that we should have. So we have to define a class with the name that is student, and these will be the data members like the admin number. Now admin number basically means admission number, the name of the student, and the aggregate which will store the aggregate marks of a student. Okay, and then there is one more data member that we have is grade, which will use to store a grade of the student depending on the aggregate value, isn't it? So grade will basically depend on what the aggregate value is. And then we will have some functions, member functions, that is allocate grade. Now this particular function will allocate the grade depending on the value of aggregate, and here is the values of the aggregate and the grade that we are going to allocate. So if the value of aggregate is more than 80, then the grade will be the A, and if it is less than 80 and greater than equal to 65, then it is B, the grade is B. Less than equal to 65 but greater than 50 is C, and less than 50 we have the grade that is D. Okay, so depending on these values we are going to allocate the grades accordingly. And then we will have some other member functions, like we need to accept data like enter data, where we will be accepting values for admission number, name, and aggregate. Okay, these three member functions we are going to accept the values in this member data, I meant to say. And display, which will basically display the result. But this particular aggregate, depending on the value of aggregate, we need to calculate the grade. So basically we will be giving a call to allocate grade, which is another member function inside the enter data. Okay, so this is what we need to do. This is what we have to define a class, and the class should be doing all these things. Okay, so let us just switch to Python and start doing it. So let us have a class with the name that is student. Okay, and then it says that these are the data members, like it says uh, admin number, that is admission number, and name of the student, aggregate, and grade. So these are the data members it should have. The class should have these data members. So let us have those data members. And how can I have the data members? That is using the init constructor. Okay, and then we have self, and then self dot, I will say admin number, that is admission number. I will initialize that to 0, and then I will say self dot second was the name, that is the name of the student. So this will be string, isn't it? And then I will have self dot aggregate, and aggregate I will initialize to 0. It will be an integer value. We'll keep this as integer value. And last was the grade. Now grade will be storing basically A, B, that is the grade of the student. So this should be a string, isn't it? So that's it. So these are the four data members that the class should have, and we have them, right? Next is that we should have a member function called as allocate grade, and this allocate grade should allocate the grade accordingly to the marks that, I mean the aggregate value that the student will have. Okay, so let us do that, and we will have def, and I say allocate grade, allocate grade, and the self. And how we will do that? Now we have to just apply certain conditions for this table, that if self dot aggregate is greater than equal to 80, then it is A, right? So let us do that. If self dot, and here it is aggregate, if it is greater than or equal to 80, then I will say self dot grade, I will allocate as grade A, and then let us have the elif part and the self dot aggregate again, that is aggregate. What is the second condition? That if it is less than equal to 80 and it should be greater than equal to 65. I'll just copy the same thing and I'll just say, no, I cannot copy the same thing actually. This is okay, but then I need to give it this way. If it is less than equal to, or if it is less than, it should be less than 80, isn't it? Because this is greater than equal to, so this is less than 80. And if it is, if self dot aggregate is greater than equal to 65, okay, and then I will give self dot grade as B, okay. And again the elif part, that is elif, and then I can just copy this part and paste it and just change the values. Now the third condition is less than equal to, this should be actually less than 65 and greater than equal to 50, right? So if this is less than 60 and this is greater than equal to 50, okay, then I will give this as C, and then again the elif part. Now the, or I can just give the else part, or fine, there is a condition, if it is less than equal to 50, then so elif self dot grade, if it is less than 50, I will say, okay, and then I'll give self dot grade as D, okay. So now you can see how we have just did the coding for this. If self dot aggregate is greater than equal to 80, then this, it will be, grade will be A. If it is less than 80 and greater than equal to 65, then it will be B. If it is less than 60 and greater than equal to 50, it will be C, and then anything less than 50 will be D, okay. So these are the grades that we have allocated. Now let us have the data, that is enter, I mean the member function, that is enter data for accepting data, self, right, self, and then I will accept self dot, that is admin number. I will take that as integer. I will say input enter admin admission number, okay, admission number, and then next self dot name of the student. So I'll just simply use the input function and I say enter student name, and then I will just enter the aggregate value. So I will say aggregate is equal to, again the int, and then input enter aggregate, enter the aggregate or enter aggregate, okay, that's it. And then depending on this value of the aggregate, I need to calculate the grade. So already I have this function which will allocate the grade depending on the value of the aggregate. So what I need to do, I need to just give a call to the function that is called as allocate aggregate, and that's it, isn't it? Okay, and then we will have def, that is display, which will just display all the data. Let us have the self and let us display it print, and I say admission number colon self dot admin, okay. Just copy this and I will paste it 2, 3 and 4, and this will be the name, and just I'll give the proper alignment, and over here dot name, okay. Over here it was the aggregate, okay, and over here that is the name of the object variable, that is aggregate, and at the last I will say the grade will be self dot grade, right, and that's it. This is the only thing that we require. So basically we have everything now in place. We have the member data, that is admin number, name, aggregate, and grade. And then we have this function which will calculate the grade depending on the value of the aggregate. So I'm just checking whether self.aggregate, if it is greater than equal to 80, then accordingly whatever the value is, accordingly it will give the grade. And then I'm accepting data from the user. What all things I'm accepting? I'm accepting the admission number, the name, and the aggregate value. And then I'm giving a call to this function. What this function will do, it will set the value of this grade depending on the value of the aggregate, right? So then at the last, what I need to do is just create an object that is a is equal to student, okay, and I'm not passing anything, but I will just say a dot enter, that is enter data, okay, and then I will say a dot display data. And we are not giving any call to this aggregate allocate grade over here. Why? Because already we are giving this call to this function allocate grade inside the enter data. So we don't need to give a call over here. Once we give a call to this function, then it will it will give a call to this function, it will jump over here, it will accept the values, and the kind of value that you enter with the aggregate, immediately the grade will get set, isn't it? And then I will display it. So let us run this and check whether everything is working fine or not. So here it is, enter the admission number, I said 12, name of the student is Ajay, grade is maybe 82, and here is the answer. And you can see the answer that we have admission number as 12, name is Ajay, aggregate is 82, and the grade is A. Why A? Because the condition aggregate is greater than equal to 80. This condition gets satisfied, so we have this output, isn't it? Let us run this again and give the admission number as 12, name as Ajay, and aggregate as 30. Okay, and then there is some small error that we had. Let us just rectify that error. That is self dot grade. Acha, over here it was self dot aggregate, isn't it? Okay, let us run this again, and admission I will give as 10, student name as Ajay, grade as 40, and you can see this time the grade is D. Why D? Because this condition got satisfied, isn't it? So this is how you can actually solve a problem using classes and objects. So we are going to take some few more examples in my upcoming videos. That's it for today. Bye for now.